All right. Hey there, Brooke. How's it going today?
It's going well. I am super excited for this next guest. We've got Travis Wilburn with Stay Charlottesville. He's been a good friend of mine for many, many years. I remember meeting him, God, it feels like 8 years ago at a Live Res conference. We actually just happened to sit next to each other at a luncheon and been friends ever since. But he's been a great friend and obviously a great partner of Vintory. And he's got a great company, Stay Charlottesville. But I'm really excited his new company, the 100 Collection. It was actually, I don't know if you remember this, Conrad, but it was on my most innovative companies last year. List. So I love what they're doing. They've caught the proverbial lightning in a bottle for sure. So can't
Yeah,
wait.
this is going to be exciting. And Travis kind of does things his own way, which I think is a good characteristic to have on the show. It's definitely not like, oh, let me just copy and paste, the formula that someone else had over in this market. I think he does things kind of his own way. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit. So I guess, Travis, how are you doing today? How are things going? And how did you meet Brooke? Is that your origin story as well? Or was there a different memory you had from?
Or was it beer pong at the Live Res conference?
It would have been Connect Four, where I actually held court for probably 2.5 hours, and then a hotel caught on fire. If you remember those days, Brooke,
Yep.
definitely the old days. But yeah, we one of my favorite memories with Brooke is actually doing a little retreat back in the day in Park City with a bunch of Live Res partners, and that's where I actually learned the magic of Brooke, if you will, and all the different cards that guy holds, and just his knowledge within the market was incredible. So. But I mean, shoot, that was 6 years ago where we got to really know each other, and 8 years ago when we met at a Live Res Partner Conference back when those were 450, 550 people. Some wild days.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Travis, I'm excited to kind of dive into everything. So if it's cool with you, we'll get right into it. We're going through your top 10 mistakes that you made, and we're kind of getting a little bit more context and more background into how you made them, why, and what you've learned kind of since then. So like I said, I'll dive right in. Number one, not networking against peers fast enough. So VRMA being the example, maybe event that you ended up going to. So it's interesting, given the lead in here, talking about the Live Res Partner Conference. What was the mistake you made there? Was it just not participating? And how did you correct it and benefit later on from doing that?
Well, I think most of the industry, when you ask them how they got started, they all got started. I fell into it. I mean, seldom do we ever hear like, "Oh, I dreamed of building a vacation rental company and turning it into 500 properties." Right? They started off with one. They self-managed it, just as I did back in 2007, and learned everything on my own. And then started the company in 2010, and was continuing to learn on my own. It was like inventing the wheel, but not necessarily needing to do it. And then it was about 2014, I believe, when Verma was in Nashville, and one of the speakers from Black Hawk Down was there, and it was drinking from a fire hose. I mean, it's just. I remember walking into one of the larger exhibit halls, and you had the maintenance table, the cleaning table, the laundry table, and everybody had the exact same problems that I did, and I quickly realized professionally how important it was to actually network in this industry. I learned a lot. I was able to pick up the phone and call different people about whether it was SEO or direct marketing, email marketing. What are they doing? What is working? What's not working? Hey, is this vendor a good vendor, a bad vendor? It's I believe there's this old axiom. I don't even know if you can call it really an axiom, but this old truth where it's 80% of all jobs are found by networking, only 20% through ads or what have you. And, I also think that holds true to our industry. 80% of the networking here is absolutely incredible, and there's really something to learn from just about everybody. And so, whether it was Verma or then it was the Live Res Partner Conference, or I remember when Amy Heide first did DARM, and she's like, "We're going to do a conference about data and revenue management." I was like, "Well, that sounds exciting."
But everybody
oh
showed
my
up.
God, I mean, and everybody showed up, and I mean, literally, you had a room of 300 of, at that point, like some of the most talented people that I've ever met in this industry, and so, I think. I wish I would have, back in 2010, I wish I would have known these different things existed. And I wish I would have networked first. I mean, it's such a crucial piece of the business. And, thankfully, I've got a great group of friends that, even during COVID, when we're all freaking out, we're all about to lose our business, or what felt like we're about to lose our business. We jumped on a weekly phone call to talk about, PPP, or what are we doing to drive business, or what are we seeing in our markets? What do we think? And, just having that network of, people that are going through the exact same thing that you are is such a crucial piece.
And Brooke, this one came up quite a bit, didn't it? And it seems like everybody, once they go, oh man, I should have done that earlier. They're kind of the head smack moment, but ultimately this is something people have benefited from a lot.
I think I actually wrote down, I think it was 22 people actually commented that they wish they, just how important networking was, conferences and, so I love Alex Houston, and I'm sure she's re-quoting someone else here, but because I've heard this multiple times, but your network is your net worth. And she also had a quote of, you are the sum of 5 people that you're around the most. But I mean, there was many, many people that talked about this. Tony Capert with Blue Maple, I love his. He talked about, just investing, and he's a very analytical, MIT grad, like very super analytical. But he looked at this as one of his mistakes was investing too little into conferences and networking. But he later discovered that those relationships, of going to conferences almost always generated so much more value than the cost of the ticket and travel. It is a big investment and time suck, but it's always worth it. So it's, this resonated multiple times.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, let's head on then over to number 2. I like this one because I don't think this one has come up, very often. So it's good to kind of hear a little bit, maybe behind the scenes, as much as you're willing to share of what happened here, Travis. So number 2, not having upper management sign non-compete. So maybe walk me through this mistake with as much detail as you're willing to share, I guess. And how do you kind of fix this later on in your career?
Yeah. So, this is going to be an interesting one.
I figured.
When one of my owners called me and said, hey, by the way, the person that's doing your owner acquisition is trying to sell me on another management company, even though I want to go with you, I was quite confused. And then I quite honestly realized that checks were getting written to help somebody start their own business or acquire another business. And I believe, all of us do things differently. There's you don't just start a management company and say, here's the book and I'm going to plug this into ChatGPT and tell me how to run a vacation rental company. There is, if you don't have a secret sauce, if there's not something that you're doing unique, you're probably not doing something right. And I definitely don't like the idea of competing against people that I train by any means. And so, non-competes vary from state to state, but at least there's something there. And to remind somebody about integrity, I think is, really crucial. And so I do not want to have to learn that lesson again. And I try to remind people, when they come work for us, they're working for us. And if they ever are not happy with us, and I literally say this, if you ever go to bed on Sunday night not enjoying Monday, as if this business actually is a Monday through Friday, but you get the point. I will actually help you find other work. And I have done that for the majority of our staff as they wear out. And so having that non-compete, I think is crucial, whether it's Stay Charlottesville or, the 100 collection, making sure that you have a secret sauce and it stays secret.
Yeah. I think this falls in, like I said, to the category of didn't come up a lot, but also very high stakes. If you so-called get it wrong and the wrong person kind of finds maybe their way into your organization and then leaves in a way that, what you've described there is obviously way beyond, unethical behavior and something that, can happen, unfortunately. So you got to certainly have that in your kind of a list of things to do. Well, let's go into number 3 then. So number 3 here, waiting too long to fire people. So I'm afraid this one did come up quite a few times, but would love to hear your perspective on waiting too long to fire people and then what it's like when you actually do decide to move on from them. How much healthier is your company after that moment?
Well, this actually ironically ties directly back into my friend Brooke. So they're in Park City back in 2016 or 17, whatever it might have been. Brooke taught me a little thing called Culture Index, and he made us all go through it. That was there at the retreat, and they all told us this random guy who I had never met before jumped online and said, "Hey, Travis, this is who you are. This is what's right with you, and this is what's wrong with you." And I was like, "Oh wow, you hit the nail on the head." Like literally, I was quite impressed. And then I was like, "Well, if you're really that good, why don't you do my entire team?" And so the entire team, or the majority of the team, did the culture index. And when we went through it, he was like, "Well, let's go through this. And you want to start off with the good or the bad?" Of course, I want to start off with the bad. And he's like, "All right, well, here's the number one." He's like, "We do not hire this type of person, and that's because this person requires emotional energy. And somewhere between Monday to Wednesday, she is crying." And I'm like, "Yeah, how do you know that?" He's like, "Because her emotional energy is less than zero, but we don't tell people that because that can actually cause them to jump off a bridge." And he literally went through verbatim, our team. He's like, "This person literally makes all the money in your company." I was like, "Yes, 80% of all revenue is actually coming from that person." And so, if now I think it's becoming a little bit more popular, but between culture index or predictive index, which I think Brooke is a culture index guy. There's
I do
another
both.
gentleman in our
I'm
retreat.
just no, I'm just as good on predictive index too, and Steve Drover and his firm does a great job too. So either one, it's as long as you're using something.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when Brooke walks up to you at a conference, he actually doesn't see your name. He just literally sees the dots of culture index, and he's putting you into these various buckets, which I always find hilarious. But companies. There are people that make lists, and there's people that check off lists, and you got to make sure you have the right people. And I'm absolutely a social person, and so letting people go is one of the harder things to do. But there are other people that we serve, whether it's your business or your owners, and letting them sit around too long only hurts all of it. And so we have been much better about letting people go faster and way slower to hire. And I might add, this is the last piece that I'll say here, but our operations manager went through that system, culture index, predictive index, and it is literally a guy that comes to work and he loves his job. He actually goes home and tells his wife how much he loves his job on a regular basis. And I would not want to do his job if I was paying myself 3x to go do that job. And yet he loves it. And that's what CI or PI can help you do to help make sure that you hire great people versus having to let go of the wrong ones.
Mm-hmm. And like I said at the top, Brooke, this one came up over and over again, but maybe we can add in some additional pieces here about CIPI, because I don't think we talked about that quite as much in previous ones.
Yeah, I mean, well, I feel like we're blending number 3 and number 4 together. So again, number 3 was waiting too long to fire people. Number 4, actually, which Travis kind of jumped to ahead, but in the same context here, but waiting too long to implement, a system technique to hire the right people, like better talent or CI, or PI. But yeah, I mean, again, firing. Every single week, kind of when we do these, we've gone over the firing people. People wait too long. We called it the 36 hours of suck. It sucks for 36 hours, but then it gets better from there. And one of my favorite quotes, I forgot who said it, but it's nothing will kill a great employee faster than watching you tolerate a bad one. But there's a couple, good quotes I remember from the book. One was Mike Harrington, founder of Carolina Retreats. He said, I hate this part of the job. Very similar to you, Travis. I'm not good a people manager, but sometimes this has to be done. And it's not about you. It's about the entire team and that a bad hire can affect. Jason Sprinkle offers these words of advice. It's never easy. And I was awful at it. As a people pleaser, I wanted someone to understand the full context of why they were being fired. So I always began with a explanation. I learned from Ashley, his CEO, to start with, we've decided to let you go. It's something that no one wants to hear, but it was a vastly better approach, and I've never done it another way since. But yeah, almost every single person throughout this book mentioned they waited way too long to fire people. But from the culture index perspective, again, and predictive index, and better talent and everything else, I mean, I know people use the word game changer all the time. It really is. It's one of those pieces that it's the last piece of software that I let go for sure. It's the biggest instrumental change in our business, is being able to hire the right people, because really people is what makes your company. And if you've got the right people in the right seats, magic can happen. If you got the wrong people in the wrong seats, like, all of your time and focus is focused on that. It's amazing how just one or two key people in the right or wrong roles completely shifts whether or not you're enjoying your day or not as a startup founder.
Yeah, definitely. And just for the record, so number 4 was specifically waiting too long to implement a system or technique to hire the right people. So I think, as you highlighted, Brooke, I think those two kind of dovetail perfectly in together.
Yep.
So I think that then leads us over to number 5. We'll head over there, showing that brand difference in owner acquisition, important to have strong tools. So I'd love to hear your perspective here, Travis, on how does that owner acquisition and brand, how does that come together? And then what strong tools did you end up implementing later on that helped grow the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, well, we've never heard the same number twice, right? So there's somewhere over 17,000 vacation rental management companies in the US. What makes you different, right? And I often, talk about this with the 100 collection, but Marriott has 32 or 33 different brands. They have the Ritz-Carlton, they have the Fairfield Inn, they have the JW Marriott, they have the Marriott. We can keep going, right? Autograph collection. And each one of those brands means something very, very different. And especially today, where we see the rise of the online travel agencies and the popularity, and letting people confuse your local brand with a global brand. There's a lot of damage that can be done to our industry because of that, right? Imagine if Delta Airlines relied solely on Kayak to fill its plane. Kayak would own the business, not Delta Airlines. And so what makes your brand different in owner acquisition? How do you speak to that? And so, here in Charlottesville, you alluded to this earlier, we haven't done things normal. I mean, we had a vacation rental company. We realized the online travel agencies weren't even agencies at the point. They were listing sites, Craigslist ads, if you will. So we built an event venue. We built a wine tour company. We built our own private DMO, hotel, amongst numerous other things, which all actually drive our business. And we never really, we never really showcase that. And so, with somebody like Vintory, getting out in front of these different owners or different properties where you want to acquire, it's like, what makes you different? And so, one of the things that we're able to quite literally speak to is a lot of our properties actually have never booked on a 3 bedrooms or larger, have never booked on an online travel agency. Yet they do almost 2x what the market does. And we've just kind of kept it a little bit of a secret, and we don't showcase that. So would owners rather pay, a 30% management fee knowing that they're going to do 2x better? I would answer yes. And so making sure you have a great tool for owner acquisition, especially now as we see a lot of people who have frustration with just, their property on a listing site that they're self-managing. They are looking for other opportunities. And so, one of the things that when we're interviewing different folks for the 100 collection, we talk a lot about direct bookings and what percentage of direct bookings do you have? What does that actually mean, and why does that make a difference? And those direct bookings make a huge difference because they're generally a different level of revenue per night. And so, if going back to that Delta reference, if you're booking on Kayak, you're generally looking at price or the efficiency of travel. if you're looking at one of those OTAs, you're generally looking at exactly the same thing. And so they're all muddled together. And I would argue you would rather stay in the Ritz-Carlton than the Fairfield Inn if both are $300 a night. So what is that brand difference? How do you do that? How do you tell that story to the owners? And how do you use a tool to get that across? And so I think owner acquisition right now is actually one of the largest opportunities, as the frustration is at an all-time high within our industry on those OTAs.
Yeah, Brooke, we talked about brand a little bit, I feel like, with Jason as well, and he was talking about making big investments into his brand that later paid off. But I mean, this speaks perfectly to kind of the Vintory platform, so maybe we talk about that in a minute as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, so Jason, I love what Jason said about that. When he's like, make your brand should be better than your actual company, or your brand should make you look better than your actual company. But this is one of those things. I mean, this is exactly my playbook when I launched Vantage. First off, we at Vintory, whenever we sign up a new partner, we actually go through what we call the 5 commandments for Vintory partner success. And number 2 is called be remarkable. Have differentiators, have good products and services, have a good reputation. Don't be like everyone else. You have to differentiate. You have to have key features and benefits that set you apart. You don't want to be like everybody else. When I launched Vantage Resort Realty, there was Ocean City is a 9-mile strip of sand. There's 20,000 condos, and there's like 20 plus vacation rental management companies. And I knew I had to differentiate. I knew I couldn't build it like everybody else. And I remember I kept going. I had a couple of initial hires that were from one of those, old guard management companies. And they kept on telling me, like, Brooke, it's not done that way here. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm going for. We have to differentiate, and we have to build something different. I still remember, I'm going to date myself here. In 2007, when I launched Vantage, I remember I looked at what a 1-bedroom condo, oceanfront condo, was going for at the time. And I'm literally dating, these were old, rough condos, but they were going for about $1,600 a night, or a week. I'm sorry. That's it. $1,600 a week. There was a brand new Hilton hotel was just built, and it was going for $3,200 a week. So it was double. And I was like, what's the differentiator? Why is it? And it kind of talks about what Travis talked about there a little bit. But I looked at what some of those key features were that was included in a hotel. I was like, how can we kind of pull some of those things in there to try to differentiate? So one of the things I noticed was they had a gym. So what did we do? We partnered with Gold's Gym, and every single reservation got free gym membership. I noticed I stayed there. You got a free USA Today sitting on your doorstep every morning. Guess what I did? We actually hired these college kids. This actually became a logistical nightmare, but it was a differentiator. We actually drove around, and literally these kids would deliver USA Today on every single one of our guest doorsteps. They drove up and down Coastal Highway and delivered that. We built my brother used to be an architect, or he is an architect. He used to be an architect for Marriott. So what did I do? I had him redesign our lobby just like a hotel would be. Here's the shocker. Sheets and towels and starter amenities weren't included in Ocean City at that time. I included that on every single reservation. I know it sounds like it's basics and table stakes at this point, but back then nobody did that. And if you did rent linens, they give them to you in a black garbage bag, and it was sitting on your doorstep a couple hours after you checked in. So I tried to do these things, and then I also created this thing called Sunny Days Guaranteed, where we actually bought a small insurance policy, and if it rained 4 or more days out of your week's vacation, we actually refunded your reservation back. And it was like a $6 insurance policy on every single reservation. But these things were all done originally, ironically enough, to attract more guests. And what ended up happening was the owners liked it. The owners were like, wow, they're doing something that's neat. These guys are a little bit different. Maybe they're getting a higher clientele. Maybe they're getting a better guest. Maybe they're getting a better stay. They're going to do less wear and tear on my property. And that became one of our key differentiators to get new owners. But again, just like Travis said, you got to build out that brand. You got to show the difference of what it looks like. And you got to, as we say in our 5 commandments, you got to be remarkable.
Jay Abraham talks about preeminence with a brand, which is basically like someone just hearing about you before and having a favorable point of view of the brand beforehand. And I think, Brooke, that the specific things you described there is a perfect example of preeminence. Like when the owner reached out to you, they were like, oh, these are the people that do XYZ. And they knew what the XYZ happened to be because they saw it from the guest side. And owners, by the way, aren't stupid. Like they own a multi-million-dollar house or, even an inexpensive condo. They own that because they usually had success in business or in life to be able to afford that property. So they can sniff out, a good company from a bad company usually pretty quickly. These aren't people who can be fooled and, something very simple, making them, pick one property manager over another.
Yep.
Yeah, well, let's flip the page then, Travis, over to number 7. So number 7, I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me go back. Sorry. So let's flip the page now over to number 6, which is not showing enough love to owners and all that we do to make it look easy. So I like this one, Travis. I don't think this exactly came up before. So how do you show love to owners, number 1, and how do you kind of break down for them the work you do and the value that you bring to their property?
This is one of my favorites, and I'm going to use a couple of different examples. So the first time I ever heard, there was a woman who started a company called Book Big Sky Vacation Rentals, Kirsten King, and she was telling me, she's like, I have an annual owners meeting, and I invite all of my owners into an event venue, and I tell them what's going on in the market, I tell them what's going on in the world, I wine and dine them, and she makes sure that she has a connection with them. And I was like, that sounds absolutely crazy. I've got these, a couple different contracts out here floating around. You put everybody in the same room. And the reality is that we, most people, it's a competitive industry. I'm lucky enough in Charlottesville that I have a little competition, but if you're in Ocean City, you obviously have 20 different managers, or if you're down in Destin, Florida, I think you have, I think that's where the other 16,900 managers are in the U.S. And there's actually, it's crazy competitive. But telling the owners, telling them about the market, inviting them into a room, we do wine and dine them now. We tell them what's happening. We explain the different political pieces, what that might be. Maybe it's regulations. Maybe it's a softening of the market. Maybe something just happened in your market, as we had in Charlottesville, and the bottom dropped out. We had a bunch of riots here in 2017, and it was kind of like the demand ticker just went completely down to zero, and it's like, well, this is, we've got a problem, but we do need to explain this. And the best way to do this is not via phone call. Let's get people in the room. Let's talk to them. Let's invite other people from the community. And it's worked incredibly well to use that as a tool for retention. We have a very, very, very low, almost non-existent turnover rate. The only way that we turn over a property is if owners want to come back and stay in their properties and live in Charlottesville full time. And we, we'll have this annual meeting and try to explain to them the entire marketplace. And, we've got another one coming up. And so, but I'll pause on me for a moment, and I'll probably steal another one of Brooke's folks here, which is Tom Goodwin, who has been doing this now for, I think it's 40 plus years.
Yep.
Having an owners meeting. And in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Tom is the owner of Mountain Laurel Chalet, a family-run company for 50 years. And I actually went to his owners meeting a couple months ago. And he literally had the mayor open up the meeting. And my thought to that is, wow, the mayor is coming to your meeting to open up your owners meeting. But imagine how the community, aka your owners, feel about having the guy that's in charge of your area talk about what's going on, and then dovetailing that into Tom Goodwin and how he's taking care of the community. And so I think a lot of people get scared of it, and I think right now, once again, as we see a softening in the market, there's a lot of unknowns, but explaining that, bringing people all in the same room and be able to showcase what's going on is more important than ever. And especially as it's going to get more competitive out there for owners.
Yeah.
Ahead,
the funny part was Tom actually was nice enough to do a nice insert for our book. It was a couple pages. He wrote like 2 or 3 pages and talked about this specifically. So thank you to Tom for throwing that. So if you want to obviously read that, you get the book. But it's, he talked about, he spends about $3,000 on it, but he gets new owners from it all the time. And just what a great investment it is. They do awards. Like you said, they brought out the mayor. It's just a great, great event. I think a lot of people are scared of it. They're afraid of getting all their owners together. Justin Ford used to do that with On the Water in Maine. He said one of his top regrets was waiting 10 years before hosting an owner gathering. He's like, don't be afraid for your owners to gather together with you. it was not only a great retention tool, it really helped get future property acquisition as well. Sarah Bradford echoed that same thing. So yeah, not a lot of people did this, but the ones that did all had very positive comments, and I was surprised with this. I never did it because I was scared to death of bringing them all together in a room.
I think it's like we were talking about earlier, though, having a relationship with your team member. It's kind of like them opening the door and having a relationship with you as well, just a little bit, getting to know someone outside of a phone call here and there, an owner report here and there, I think is super valuable. So I like that idea quite a bit. What was the line from last week, Brooke? Was it, in the absence of information, people assume the worst? I feel like that's also part of this, right? Like controlling that narrative.
In the absence of information, people fear the worst. Yep.
Yeah. So if you sit down and give them information, they're going to feel, okay, now I know what's going on. Thank you, Travis. Thank you. The other people that we see there, and that helps a lot for sure. All right, let's see if I can get this right this time. Okay, so heading over to number 7, setting and implementing roles and responsibilities to create success. So maybe this goes back to the team, but I'd love to hear your perspective a little bit here, Travis, on implementing roles and how do you set them up for success?
I think when we all start companies in this space, you kind of have a jack of all trades, right? It's like you're the head of cleaning, you're head of maintenance, reservations, SEO, digital marketing, whatever it might be, right? But as we mature our businesses, making sure that you spell out clear roles and responsibilities. And, ironically, once again, this ties back to Brooke and a little thing called EOS, Entrepreneurial Organizational System. And understanding how to set up your company, whether you have 3 people or 40 people, you can start setting that framework now. And looking at, okay, hey, I've got 40 properties and I need X number of people with these different roles and responsibilities. I think having that clear actually helps going back to allowing number 3 and number 4 to actually happen. And making sure that people understand that you've got, this is, what our expectation is. This is what we need from you. This is how we respond to people. This is what happens when we have a negative review. This is who is in charge of that. And making sure that you have organized essentially your team so that you can actually work as a team. And I'm not sure why I'm using this reference, but it goes back to also for some reason, I'm thinking back to Verma, to that Black Hawk Down speaker who said, while he was in the battlefield, he's like, I don't care if you're a captain, I don't care if you're a lieutenant, you're only as good as a person to your left or good as a person as your right. Like, doesn't really matter what, stripes you have. And I think, in our world, it's like making sure that you set up your team. It's like, if everybody understands what everybody's role and responsibilities are, you're creating success. And so having that spelled out, having that on paper, making sure that people see that and understand it so that we can create accountability is crucial. I think we're a little bit, or at least I shouldn't say we, but I was quite lackadaisical way too long before implementing.
And EOS has come up a few times, Brooke, and I think there is, a piece of it where it's about implementing, putting the right people in the right seats. But sometimes, like, Travis is saying here, it's about figuring out what those roles actually are, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go a different one because we've mentioned EOS like 15,000 times, and I'm sure we will.
EOS the commission, I swear. Yeah.
But E-Myth was a great book. Michael Gerber, he talks. This is one of my greatest takeaways with the E-Myth was draw out your org chart, like way out into the future. Think 3, 4, 5 years and get a little sticky note and have a role for every, have a title, job description and a title for every role that you're going to have. Push it out there and then write all the names. You are probably going to be on like 8 of those, or 10 of those. And then what your goal over time, though, is to start replacing you off of those. And start, putting somebody else's name on that role. But, you can draw out your org chart out into the future, and it just makes it really simple as you grow and as you scale. And then, before you know it, you're only in one role. But I always love that in the E-Myth.
Yeah, that's a solid book as well. Go ahead, Travis. Yeah.
Well, I think, I think, Brooke, you reminded me of this. You're allowed to have one person in multiple roles, but you're not allowed to have 2 people in one role.
Yes.
And that helps create that accountability and organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's kind of flip the page here a little bit to number 8, because this is kind of a different one. So number 8, allowing people of influence in bureaucratic positions to not put their positions in writing for record keeping later. You don't want to be told, for example, maybe this might have happened 5 years later, that you should be paying sales tax on cleaning. So I
This
feel
is
like
a
there's a
very
bad story.
specific one, Travis, man.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is very specific.
you got a grudge on somebody on this
Oh,
one.
Break it down for us.
God. One of the largest accidental checks I think I've ever written in my life was based off of this. And so, back in 2010 when we started here, the vacation rental group, it was, people thought I was actually crazy. They're like, "You're going to do what? You're going to rent out your property nightly, in an urban market." And our wine country was just kind of budding. And so, I had called the real estate world. I had called the tax division of the state. I had asked all sorts of different questions, but I did it all over the telephone. And one of those questions was, should you charge taxes on cleaning? And they're like, well, no, it's a service. And in the state of Virginia, services are not taxable. However, when the state of Virginia likes to audit you, the auditor is looking to find what's not taxed. And he's like, well, you should have been charging tax on that. And I was like, well, no, you guys told me. Nope, you told me in 2010. Anyways, after a fair amount of cleaning fees had been charged, the state didn't really care. They're like, here's how much you owe. And so I get everything in writing now. And so whether it's zoning, and there's a question on it, or there is some type of agreement, I want to back it up in writing every single time. And so whether it's bureaucratic positions or just any position, I try as best as I possibly can to make sure that it is on some type of official record, because I've got quite a few different examples of this. And I came from an old school world here in Virginia where it's, that you're only as good as your handshake, but apparently we don't operate under that same premise anymore. And so as often as possible, I try to get it in writing, especially when it comes to taxes now.
Yeah. The tax man always comes for his bill, doesn't he? And he's always unforgiving, or she. But yeah, Brooke, this one came up quite a bit. I guess not in that specific scenario with the cleaning fees and things like that. That seemed like a deep wound, Travis. That I'm sorry I dug up on you. But this did come up a few times, right, Brooke?
I think a couple of people talked about it. I think Steve Trover talked about it. Steve Schwab and James Mannings with Top Villas. Yeah, I think what was it? Steve Trover's quote was something to the effect of, "It didn't happen often, but when it did, it really bit me hard." So,
right. One of those ones that doesn't, like that high leverage scenario. When it goes the wrong way, it's going to be a deep cut. Right on. Well, let's then turn the page to number 9. I think this is an interesting one because this came up a little bit in the context of software and accounting. So number 9, demanding my software to do trust accounting with accuracy. So what was kind of the breakdown here of trust accounting? What was the software fix, or what was the people fix that later corrected this issue?
Oh, wow. I think we're going to leave names out of this one, but I think, what happens when we're looking at various softwares is we generally assume that everything that is being said is being done. And there are, God knows how many different property management systems, in our marketplace. But very few actually do trust accounting. And if you think about it, in today's world, every reservation comes in with, let's call it anywhere between 6 to 15 different lines of code. And we take that dollar, and every single penny should be able to drop in a bucket. This goes into TOT. This goes into cleaning. This goes into sales tax. This is my owner's money. This is my money. This is my damage fee waiver. And you should be able to click a button and know exactly what's in those buckets with accuracy. And I think that needs to be demanded by all softwares. A number of years ago was working on trying to balance out my trust account, and it I hired a company that had been recommended, widely, and I came, a year and a half later, and I didn't believe the numbers. I didn't think it was right, and then I spent, another 6 months doing forensic accounting to try to get back to those numbers. And I mean, that's, to be perfectly honest, that's worse than number 8 and not getting it right for your sales tax on cleaning. Having an unbalanced trust account is probably one of the scariest possible things. And so demanding that from your software before seeing all the other advantages of that software, I think is probably the most crucial piece right now, and is not an option. And so there are a couple companies that are doing it pretty well, and there's a lot of companies that aren't doing it at all.
Mm. Yeah. This one did come up a few times, and I think it's right, kind of vetting not only with the person giving you the demo, and I'm sure that person doing the demo has all the right intentions, but they're also going to say things sometimes to close the deal. Always good to check with users, do your own cross-check and not just blindly trust whoever is, kind of on the other side of that stuff. So yeah, one that people have had to learn for sure. All right, then.
I do think it's funny. I'm not going to name the name, but there is one person out there that is actually building the trust accounting for most of the softwares that are becoming reliable, which I just find kind of hilarious. One person with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of businesses, if not billions. But
well, that one person, the vacation rental industry, if they're doing it properly, then should thank that person, because hopefully they're for this a very important thing for sure. All right, number 10, let's kind of turn the page in and bring us to the finish line. So number 10, taking time for myself, went 5 years without a vacation. Hate to say it, Travis, but this came up a lot. What was kind of that, feeling like of not having that? What was that? Maybe, I don't know if you experienced burnout or something close to it. And then how did you later kind of solve that as you built and scaled the company later on?
Well, I almost think that goes back to almost 1 through 9 there, but what we've got, it's just, when you start these companies off, like for me, I carried the Batman phone for God knows how many different years. And that meant that, if there was a maintenance call at 2:00 in the morning, I took that call. And a lot of us do that. And, now some of the platforms require you to respond so quickly. It's like you don't ever get a break. And you feel that constant stress. I mean, this is, I think there's a lot of people who try to make this sound like it's a really easy business. It is not an easy business. It is not kind of a set it and forget it, and suddenly you just start making money and build your wealth on the short-term world in 5 seconds. It's complicated, and the most important thing we do is actually take care of ourselves before anything else, and that allows you to take care of everything else. And so I think it was 2014 or 15 until I handed off the Batman phone. I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to take 45 days and go kite surf, and I'm going to reset." Mm-hmm. And that ended up being one of the most significant moments of my career, because it allowed me to have a renewed energy. And by the 45th day, I was so excited to go back to work, and I had an incredibly renewed energy. And I think we forget to do that. It's crazy that we live, in the vacation rental space, right? And we have these beautiful houses that people dream of, and a lot of us have connections through the industry all over the country, if not world, of those incredible homes, and yet we forget to use them or utilize them in some fashion. So. I have since, I have not had that Batman phone in a number of years, and I make sure that nobody keeps that Batman phone too long, so that they're also taking care of themselves. And, we have a policy within our office, that, if you need vacation, take it. And ironically, nobody ever takes advantage of it. I don't have 2 weeks off. I don't have 3 weeks off. We say that in a job description, but I've never kept track of it once. And that also that helps, keeps my people there longer. Because I want to make sure that they're taking care of themselves so that I can also take care of myself, because I don't want the stress of their role as well. And so taking time off, hanging up the phone, not paying attention, absolutely crucial.
Where'd you go kite surfing?
Where have I not gone kite surfing? Dominican Republic,
45 day trip.
Zanzibar. Yeah. Cabarete, Dominican Republic, incredible spot that nobody goes to on the North Coast. Zanzibar, Greece. We've gone kite surfing all over the world. It's a great sport if you ever get a chance. It's kind of amazing how many people are in our industry that are actually closet kite surfers.
Is there like an underground the VRMA like kite surfing meeting that I'm not a part of? Yeah.
I'm going to create one.
There you go. Right on. Well, Brooke, back to the mistake here. Sorry. This one did come up a few, repeatedly, unfortunately. And it is kind of unfortunate because people do, unfortunately, bring themselves to that burnout stage before getting it fixed. But anything else to add in here or talk about on this piece?
Yeah, I mean, well, Travis kind of took my thunder a little bit, but it's kind of ironic. We're in the vacation rental business, but most of the people in this industry don't go on vacations. So I remember soon after I sold Vantage, I happened to be vacationing. It was on 4th of July. I was sitting at the pool and I remember looking down. It was, we were there for a couple hours and I remember looking down at my phone and it didn't ring once. And I went to my wife and I just kind of like chuckled and I kind of showed her my phone. I'm like, my phone has not rung one time, which, Travis, I was in the same, shoes you were. I always had the bat phone. There's many times I was delivering linens at 2:00 in the morning and things like that. So I think Simon Lehman mentioned something to the effect of, he said, thinking that the business won't run without the founder owner and therefore not being able to take a break or a holiday. That was one of his mistakes. And this, I'll end it with this. One of my favorite quotes. It goes, and I can't remember who said it, but it's almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including yourself. So we'll end it there.
Right on. Yeah, no, I thank you really, Travis. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add in here or if we can kind of put a bow on this, but we appreciate you and we appreciate you taking the time today really to talk through these mistakes. I know there's going to be someone, we've said this on previous recordings, is going to listen to one of these that's going to internalize it and not make that mistake. So you didn't know it, but you just saved some vacation rental entrepreneur out there that's getting going. So we appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So Travis, if you could go back and give your 25-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
Stop listening to the noise. Follow your path. I think that it's always great to get advice, ask peers, ask questions, do research, but follow your gut. If I would have, it was actually ironic. I was about 25 when I built the guest house behind my main house, and that's actually what started the company. And everybody told me I was a complete idiot because I said I was going to rent it out nightly, and they're like, "That will never work." And of course, that's a number of years ago before anybody had heard. There was no Airbnb, and Vrbo was not very popular, at least in this market. And follow your own path. Listen to your heart. And hear others, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to listen to them. Probably my greatest advice.
Nice. Well, perfect. We'll end it there. Thank you, Travis, again for your time. We really appreciate it. Someone who definitely has followed their own path, and we appreciate you listening. If you've listened this far, we'll catch you next time with the next episode.
All right.